What's good with y'all? Hope y'all doing well today. In this video, I'm gonna do something a little different. I'm gonna be showing y'all 5 things that I think every upcoming producer needs to do in 2023. With all that being said, let's jump right into the first tip. Alright, so for the first thing, I want to talk about networking. I think this is one of the most important things you could do as a producer, and I'm just going to show you a few methods that I think are pretty helpful. So the first of these 3 methods is to go onto Genius and find other producers that have produced for a lot of similar artists that you might have beats or loops for. Alright, so for starters, what I'll do is I'll go over to Genius here, go to the search bar on the top left, and say I have a lot of loops for Lil Durk, so I'll just type in Lil Durk. I'll go down to the albums and I'll find some of the more recent projects that he has. So for example, let's do 7220 Deluxe. And I would recommend starting with your favorite songs or songs that you have loops that might sound similar to. For example, if I have loops that sound like these 3 songs right here, what I'll do is I'll just expand these down and I'll go to the produced by and the written by credits. I'll just go and middle click on my mouse and just open all of these in different tabs. And so I can go to one of these producers here and I can go to the bottom here and it'll usually have most of their socials. And then from here, I can just go to the Instagram and then see if they follow people that I do, or if they have a similar amount of following to me or other type of overlap. As for tips for actually DMing new producers, don't make the same cookie cutter message for every producer. Actually individualize it. Say, hey, I really like the vibe you have on this particular song. I got some loops like it, etc., etc. So actually personalize the messages and send them messages that pertain to the songs that they have. For this next networking tip, you're going to be going onto YouTube and finding type beat producers. Let's say, for example, I have a lot loops for ESTG, so I'm just going to look up ESTG type beat. From here, I can go to these top ranking channels and then open up their channel pages here and then go to their about and find their socials and then hit them up from there. And if you have vidIQ or something equivalent to it, you can go to this right column here and go to the top channels for the term and do the same thing. And again, similar to the last tip, personalize it. Tell them, hey, I like this specific beat off your channel. I have a lot of loops like it, or hey, I really like the ESTG type beats. Just make it somewhat personalized. And similar to the last tip, you want to find producers that are kind of in the same range of your following. It also helps if they follow other people that follow you. And this is the last networking tip, and this is to help find smaller artists that you can actually network and go up with. I got this idea from my boy Zave, so shout out to him for putting me on this one. What you do is you'll go onto Instagram or on YouTube and you'll find videographers. Especially on Instagram, you can find a lot of upcoming artists that work with them and be able to get some of your music out there with smaller artists and possibly grow with them. So moving on to the next topic here, and it is building your brand. For me personally, the biggest thing building my brand is content creation. There's a few ways in which you can do this. One of the first that might come to mind is making a YouTube channel. And for me personally, I do a lot of beat breakdowns and cookups, and that's just what worked for me. And that mostly goes for like long form content. You can also do other types of videos too. You're not just limited to that. And you can also do a lot of short form content, specifically like TikTok, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts. A lot of producers have found success with that too. And it's generally a little bit quicker in terms of the content making process opposed to making long form videos. And similar to those, you can do cookups, beat breakdowns. You can also just make general production content like just memes, anything that's kind of involved in the culture of producing. Doesn't necessarily have to be a tutorial video or anything of that sort. Overall, it just has to be something that's beneficial to somebody, whether it's just entertaining or it's actually useful information. Also, if you have anything noteworthy like placements, vlogs, or if you're traveling somewhere for music, that's also a really great place to put it. And when you're making content like this, try to make it as organized as possible and try to condense it as much as possible. In building your brand, I feel like it's a lot easier to focus on one demographic first and then being able to branch out to others. It usually makes the growth a little bit faster in the beginning too. Usually the primary audience for producers on social media is producers or artists. If you're making a lot of type beats types of videos, you're probably gearing your audience more towards the artist side of things. Or if you're going to be making a lot of cookups, beat breakdowns, and other content of that sort, you're gearing it more towards the producers. And there's different ways to monetize it through that. It's just a different product that you might be getting across to the audience. And overall, like I said before, try to make your presentation be as professional looking as possible. From day one, you're not going to make the greatest looking profile on any of your socials. You're not going to have like the perfect thumbnails or anything like that. With enough practice, you'll eventually get to the point it starts to look pretty professional and the quality of both your page and your content will be a lot better. This is kind of a smaller detail, but I still think it's kind of important in certain situations, and that's getting a good producer tag. If you need to, get your friend to record something for you, pay some money for it, or find like sound bites on the internet and be able to process it. There's a lot of videos out there on how to make your own producer tag that I think are pretty good, but overall, get a good catchphrase or something so that you have a quality producer tag to use. So the next tip isn't quite as nuanced as the other ones, but in my opinion is also really important, and that is organizing your beats and loops. And what I mean by this is you want to label each of your project files and your MP3s and waves and whatever you have on your computer, label it with at least the tempo and the key if you know what it is, and also try to label them with a specific type. That way it'll be easier to kind of sort through them in the event that you do need to send them out quickly. And if you do have services like Dropbox or Google Drive or whatever you might use, like a cloud-based service, and if you really want to, you can make separate folders for those by specific type. Say you're following a producer and they drop an email and they say they need a specific type of loop, you can just go to that folder, pick a few and send it pretty quickly. You don't have to go and sort through each individual one. It doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal, but in a pinch it really does come in clutch. So I do think it's pretty important in doing that. And also, if you're sending out a lot of loops, I do recommend putting at least your name or maybe your Instagram @ on each of the loops just at the end of the file name. That way it's easier for the producer to contact you if they are using your loops, and it avoids any confusion later down the line. Another tip with this is having some sort of cloud-based service to where you can put your loops on and share them from quickly. I personally like using Dropbox. You can use whichever one works best for you. This will also help in sending loops out pretty quickly, especially if you have your loops organized on Dropbox. All you have to do is just go hit share and copy link, and then you can send that in the email, and it also avoids any conflicts that Google Drive or something else might happen in the email itself. The fourth tip I want to talk about is being able to have a beat store or a website. This goes kind of hand in hand with building your brand, but I think having a specific landing page where people can go buy your products, whether that's loop kits, beats, or any other service or good that you're providing, I think that is a very important thing to have because it makes your job selling a whole lot easier. It's more likely for people to actually make purchases towards what you're doing. Some services that come to mind for me are BeatStars and Airbit. You can also make your own website and purchase your own domain and run it through there. I'm personally not too familiar with that method, but I've heard that that's worked for a lot of people. And again, similar to your branding, you want to have something that looks pretty professional and organized. So if somebody wants to find a sound kit, a beat, or a service, it's organized in a manner in which you can find it pretty easily. So moving into the last tip, what I think is one of the most important ones is organizing your time. So this may seem like kind of a cliche tip, but I just want to elaborate a little bit on it. So overall, the whole point of this is you just want to make a general schedule. I know a lot of us are pretty busy people, whether you're going to school or you're also working a job along with doing music production. You don't necessarily need to have a very strict schedule for this. It could just be as simple as just noting down what you need to do for the day or for the week. Me personally, I kind of like doing that. I don't like having a very strict schedule. I just list down all the things I need to get done within a certain time period. Or what I'll do is I'll go onto the reminders app on my phone and just jot down what I need to do and then just set a certain due date for it, or just set a time where I want it to remind me that I need to get it done. So whether that's recording a video or sending out loops or just other general things that I might need to do, and also leave time for you to cook up as well, because I feel like practicing your craft, whether you're making loops, beats, or whatever you're doing in this music space, you have to spend a consistent amount of time creating to actually get really good at it. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy like you're making 5 to 8 beats from scratch every single day, but just make it so that you're actually creating something of quality on a fairly consistent basis. Whether that means you're making 5 beats from scratch per week, but you're putting a lot of time and effort into it, or if you're able to do it quicker, or if you're using loops and whatnot, it might look a little bit differently for you. And with this, you also want to write down all your goals for a specific amount of time. So for me personally, I like writing my goals out on a monthly, 6-month, and yearly basis. And this is just a good way to keep track of your milestones and to help keep yourself motivated, because if you're pretty consistent with this and you do it on a day-to-day basis, being able to go back and look at your goals from a month ago or 6 months ago or even a year ago is a pretty good way to just see how far you've come and made progress. A lot of times people get discouraged because they feel like they're not seeing any progress, and so I think just having goals and just have those milestones is also a pretty good thing to have. And to finally round out this topic, I think this doesn't get said enough, but give yourself breaks. If you feel like you're genuinely burnt out, you have no ideas, you don't want to do this, if you feel like you're kind of pushing yourself to do this for no reason, then I feel like that's not really beneficial for you as a creative. So do give yourself breaks, give yourself time away from it. That might look different for everybody. I mean, some people might need breaks once a month. Some people could go for maybe a year or two and then finally get a break. So don't feel discouraged if you do need to take a break. Take some time away. You'll come back more creative, more refreshed. You'll be able to be far more consistent than you were before that. So that's going to wrap it up for this one. I think I've done enough talking. Hopefully a lot of these tips were pretty beneficial for y'all. And that's going to wrap it up for this one. So I'll see you on the next one. Peace.